Sweden's national final, Melodifestivalen, is the most talked about Eurovision event outside the contest itself. With that naturally comes controversy and criticism, and I've engaged in a fair amount of that myself on this channel in the past. It's also a national selection that somehow I have never attended in person until now. I'm filming this video in the press centre in Stockholm on the day of the final, and I've chosen a great year to attend, because the narrative that is developing here could become one of the great fairy tale underdog stories of the season. Everyone loves an underdog, and Eurovision is no different. Karia and Baby Lasagna came from nowhere in 2023 and 2024 to fulfill that role, and in one case, ironically, they were beaten to the win by Sweden. Sweden's underdog this year, though, is different. Today, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Felicia, the artist formerly known as Fröken Snusk. But in the wake of years of coercive control and manipulation by her producer, who owned the rights to the name and the image of Fröken Snusk, she managed to struggle free of the abusive contract that she was tied into, and is now back in her own name. Meanwhile, that producer, who she was with before, has done everything he can to drag her back down into the mud and to ensure that she has no independent career or status outside of her identity under the Fröken Snusk mask. What's really incredible about this is, going into the final tonight, Felicia is the overwhelming favourite to win. Today we're going to deep dive into that story, we're going to talk about how we got here, and by the time you see this, you might well know if she has managed to win or not too. Don't worry, you will of course see our reaction to the results in this video and to the show from this very press centre in which I am now sat. With all of that in mind though, Melodifestivalen is a 6-week long tour of chaos, and it's only right to hit a few of the highlights first, starting with a song that unfortunately didn't make it to the final despite being one of the iconic performances of the year. That's Junior Lerin with his song Copacabana Boy.
Copacabana Boy, oi oi oi, Copacabana Boy.
Before this, Junior Lerin had never released music in his life. He had also never sung to a live audience before, and yet here he is on Sweden's biggest show. And my god, it was glorious. Junior has ended up here after appearing on a variety of Swedish TV shows, above all, his performance on Let's Dance. Subsequently, he's ended up creating this tribute of a song to his Brazilian heritage and his roots alongside Fredrik Andersson, who saw him on those shows and had an idea. That idea was writing this song. To be clear, this is not a very good song. Junior Lerin is not a very good singer, but to be honest, this brought me more joy and happiness than almost anything else this Eurovision season. The art of creating a disaster bop is an even finer and more specific one than of creating a musical masterpiece. You need exactly the right blend of tacky production choices, lowest common denominator lyrics, and a genre and vocal performance that just hits none of the marks in exactly the right way. This fulfilled all of those criteria, but it still came out looking good, in part because it was so iconic, and in part because Junior clearly just had an absolute ball of a time performing this. He missed some cues, he stood in the wrong place on stage, and generally rolled from one disaster to the next, all with a big smile on his face. What was even better was that even though he didn't get out of the semi-final, he did have his moment when he received 12 points from one of the age groups in the voting sequence. Is this a good song? No. Have I been singing Copacabana Boy oi 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 non-stop for the week since? Yes, I have. In my opinion, Junior is the absolute archetypal have-a-go hero, and he deserves all of the plaudits for getting up on stage and delivering this for us. We will all always be Copacabana boys. Oh, by the way, the dancer behind the steel drums in this performance is Zara Larsson's boyfriend, who, as it turns out, is one of the Melodifestivalen dancers, and you'll see him several times throughout the show. Keep an eye out for him, but I doubt he will be having as much visible fun in any of the performances of the final as he clearly did in this one. Another curiosity, but something else we're sadly not going to see in the final, is Alexa, who entered this competition with her song Tongue-Tied. Alexa won the only edition of the American Song Contest a few years ago, and given she's a K-pop artist, it was inevitable that sooner or later she would come into contact with enough Swedes to potentially draw her into Melodifestivalen's orbit. That has now happened. I was really excited about this because I genuinely think K-pop and similar would be a really exciting addition to Eurovision, and to shows like this as well. I presume that's what the Swedish broadcaster thought too, and that's why she's here. Tongue-Tied is a very formulaic but punchy K-pop song, which meant that while I got what I hoped for, early predictions that she could challenge for a victory rapidly started to unravel. The problem with this kind of music is that it is divisive, and the voting system for Melodifestivalen naturally favours songs that have wide appeal across every single age group. That's because in the semi-finals, unless you win outright, these age groups give out all their points separately. This in turn was borne out because Alexa scored maximum points from 3 to 9-year-olds and with 10 to 15-year-olds, but got completely bombed by all of the other age groups above that. Melfest uses a total of 4 different voting systems across the heats and the final, so don't devote too much energy to trying to understand it. Alexa also wasn't helped by the fact the performance maybe wasn't the strongest. She was a victim of extremely high expectations owing to the fact that she had previously won the American Song Contest, so anything less than essentially a winner level in this situation was going to be a disappointment. Ultimately, unfortunately, that is what transpired. As for what we are getting in the final, there's a couple to highlight that look like contenders at the top. Before I get into them, we should quickly do some honourable mentions to a few others who've earned their place here. Smash Into Pieces, who have come back with another song that is very similar to their last 2 efforts, but have once again put the performance together well. Medina, who have come back with another song that is very similar to their past 2 efforts, but have once again put the performance together well. And Sanne Nielsen, who has once again come back with another song that is very similar to her last 7 efforts, but has once again put the performance together very well. All 3 of these will probably finish somewhere in mid-table. We also have Mira Omar, who has for the second time provided a song that essentially sings itself without her input. And I also want to shout out the fireman from Brøndstad Slackers, which is probably my second favourite of the entire thing. Let's focus in on the headlines now before this video gets too long. The 4 songs I'm going to go through are the 4 that I think will ultimately be the top 4 in this show once all is said and done. We'll quickly speed through and then we'll go to that underdog favourite Felicia that I mentioned at the start. First up is Greshula with his song Half of Me. Greshula is another returnee from last year, and when he was announced as one of the artists, he instantly became one of the favourites to win. That status fell away as the heats passed by, but he was always a safe qualifier with something that fits perfectly into the Swedish musical appetites. Half of Me is very much a kind of Queen/ABBA crossover that doesn't necessarily tread any new ground, but it is a staple here. What separates this from other Melodifestivalen staples I've briefly mentioned is that firstly, Greshula sings it really well, and secondly is his image. Swedes love him, and he very much has that kind of heartthrob energy that makes these things work. Because of that, it doesn't necessarily feel important that this isn't the freshest sound or that this is something that hasn't been done before. It's a fun song, sung well by a handsome singer, and there's an audience for that. As a result, he'll probably do quite well. Also, he flies. Next we have 18s with the song Iconic. When I first listened to this one and then talked about it on live stream, the fact that I had never heard of 18s before caused some uproar in the live chat. In my defense, their last album was released when I was literally 6 years old. It was before my time. But simultaneously, I fully understand the nostalgia factor for the generation that grew up listening to this band. In addition to that, even though it's been 20 years, they haven't lost their touch. It's a competent performance, it's well staged and put together, and they deliver every single time. It reminds me a bit of Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die, which is maybe indicative of the kind of era it's pitched towards, but the generation that loves this group are both the majority of jurors in this show and a significant amount of the voting public. They were massive in Sweden and in fact in much of Europe, and I am expecting them to be handsomely rewarded as a result. A top 3 finish could genuinely be on here, even though they weren't able to win their heat initially. Finally, before we move on to Felicia, we have the wild card here. That's Lilla Al-Fadji, who's entered with his song Delulu. This song is something that I just do not understand, and initially I don't think I understood the Lilla Al-Fadji character either. He is a cornerstone of the Swedish comedy scene, and he has been for many years. So Swedes have a lot of previous context that helps the jokes land here. For me, I didn't have that, and because of that, I didn't really get it. It's a silly song with nonsensical lyrics, and it didn't help that, of course, I don't speak Swedish. One thing I will say is since I initially listened to this song, we actually did some interviews earlier this week, including with Lilla Al-Fadji. I was the cameraman for some of my friends as a favour, and I have to be honest, this is one of the funniest people I have ever seen in my life. It's very rare that you are filming an interview and it becomes difficult to hold the camera straight because you're laughing so much. Because of that, even though I still don't like the song, I've developed a bit of a soft spot for it. What ultimately the genius of this is that it seems to be extremely divisive. You're not going to have a 5 or 6 out of 10 opinion of this. It's going to be, I hate it or I love it. You don't get anywhere without being divisive sometimes when it comes to music. In this context at least. For that reason, I totally understand its appeal. Now let's talk about the favourite to win and simultaneously the underdog story that I teased earlier. That's Felicia with her song, My Sister. Ever since the performance dropped in her heat, Felicia has been the runaway favourite to win this show, and as of right now, she's something like 71% chance of winning. To be honest, it's difficult to imagine, at least at this stage before the show, anybody else occupying that position. The song itself is not revolutionary because, of course, EDM is a really well-trodden path, but this is really an exceptionally well-done performance. And the production is essentially as good as it possibly could be. What really makes it, though, is the vocal. When I think of this kind of music, I think about horror shows in the context of Eurovision, like Lumix and Pia Maria from a few years ago, because it is exceptionally difficult to deliver these kinds of vocals live. Luckily, that isn't a problem here, because even though she's been sick this week, Felicia has delivered it perfectly every single time. That said, what really fascinates me isn't just the song. Felicia is not an ordinary artist, and as I mentioned before, this isn't her first time in Melodifestivalen. What it is, though, is her first time in this show under her own name. She was previously known as Fröken Snusk before her producer, who owned the rights to that name and the identity, took it away from her and essentially tossed her to the curb. This has evolved into a huge saga that has been prominent in the Swedish press long afterwards. And the producer in question is clearly not enjoying her return to prominence, given that he seems to grab the nearest microphone every 10 minutes to talk trash about her. With that in mind, though, from my point of view as a foreigner, it's difficult to fully capture the entire saga in a way that will make sense. For that reason, this week I've gone to the headquarters of Aftonbladet, one of Sweden's biggest newspapers, and also one of the authorities on all things Melodifestivalen, to get you a rundown from an expert. So here is, courtesy of Tobbe Ek, the full story of Felicia, of Fröken Snusk, and of Rasmus Gozzi.
My name is Tobbe Ek. I'm a journalist with the Swedish daily newspaper Aftonbladet, and I've been covering Melfest and Eurovision for roughly 20 years now. The Felicia, Fröken Snusk and Rasmus Gozzi story, well, it started when Felicia just had finished high school. She was 19 or 20 when she, through her social media, came in contact with a songwriter that was working with Rasmus Gozzi, a music producer, averagely known in Sweden for releasing music, a very party type of music style that is mostly popular within the younger crowd. It's quite often sexually explicit lyrics, and it's widely popular outside of the major city areas. The first couple of songs were released under Rasmus Gozzi's name, as he usually did back then, with a female vocalist. Somewhere around 2021, the brand Fröken Snusk, or Little Miss Naughty, as it would translate into in English, was invented. According to Felicia's story, she was the one that came up with the idea of the pink ski mask, as she had a friend who had worn a pink ski mask at a Halloween party, and she thought it was a funny disguise. Rid mig som en dalahäst was suddenly topping charts, the Spotify chart in Sweden. The song is basically sexually telling a story about how she is riding her sexual partner as a horse. This was a song that caught the Swedish music industry and Swedish music journalists with surprise, because it was suddenly, who the hell is this mysterious girl behind a ski mask singing this sexually explicit song, and why is all the kids listening to it? Here started Felicia's career, but at the same time, she had a very strict contract with Rasmus Gozzi's record label. It's a small company that mainly focuses on party music and the epadunk genre. Within that contract, there are several secrecy clauses, but as far as we have gathered, during this time, she wasn't allowed to reveal her name or her identity in any way whatsoever. So wherever she went, she wore that pink ski mask. This was her very first contact with any type of the Swedish music industry. This was her way in. But it was also her only way in. She didn't have any other contacts within the music industry. So Rasmus Gozzi and Gozzi Records was basically her school into how things work. The contract she signed was the only contract she had ever seen in the music industry. And she was bound by that to do performances. She was paid for the performances. But if she didn't perform, she wasn't paid. And as far as we have understood, and from what she has made clear throughout interviews, even though she never specifically reveals details in the contract, she was even bound by the contract that if she was to cancel a gig, she would have to pay up the costs that was occurred for the cancellation of such a gig. She could travel from the north of Sweden to the south of Sweden and do 2, 3, 4 gigs in a long weekend and just working her ass off. This pushed her so hard that she, in the summer of 2023, was hospitalized. After this hospitalization, was diagnosed with depression. Rasmus Gossi is very clear when he talks about this period that it wasn't him treating her badly that forced her into hospital, but rather her depression. But Felicia's version is, of course, that the depression came from how hard she was pushed to work. This was in the fall of 2023, at the same time as Sweden's biggest music competition, Melodifestivalen, of course started thinking about who is this mysterious girl under the ski mask that has this huge audience. Because for Melfest, it's so important to attract the younger audience. The type of music with the sexually explicit songs, that cannot be a part of Melfest, but they still wanted that audience. So not knowing about Felicia's hospitalization, not knowing about how hard she was pushed to work, there was forming an idea to get her into Melfest. And since Rasmus Gossi had quite a bad reputation, SVT and Melfest also wanted to distance themselves from that label, but they still wanted Fröken Snusk to take part. We're not really sure exactly how it worked, but for Rasmus Gossi, it was also, of course, extremely good promotion to have Fröken Snusk in the biggest music competition in Sweden. What he did was he struck a deal with another record label that, for the Melfest part, was handling her, was taking care of that, and a song was written, approved for all audiences, instead of being sexually explicit and R-rated. And this was a big success. This was after, just 6 months after Felicia had been hospitalized for depression, but that was also her first proper contact with the Swedish music industry outside of what she had learned within Gossi Records and the people that she had worked with when they had been touring as Fröken Snusk. The success Felicia had as Fröken Snusk during Melfest, that was of course something that Rasmus Gossi could capitalize on in the Fröken Snusk brand. So Felicia kept on touring. She went on other big TV shows in Sweden, Allsång på Skansen, which is a big summer show. She was in Masked Singer, and under the mask in Masked Singer, she had the Fröken Snusk mask still on. She was in a reality, a traitor similar reality show as well called Spelet that was broadcast on SVT. As she was doing all this, she was also touring as Fröken Snusk. But bound by the contract, she wasn't allowed to ever reveal her true identity. This, of course, kept eating her up. Felicia's version is that early in 2025, she gave notice that she wanted to resign. And from what she has told us is that, according to the contract, and for what she believed was that giving this notice, she would still have to, and she counted on, performing as Fröken Snusk throughout 2025. But then suddenly one day she was just cut off from all the Fröken Snusk social medias, and she was notified through a message on Facebook that from now on, Gossi Records just intended to communicate with her via email in written form. At the same time, another girl started showing up as Fröken Snusk under the ski mask. Rasmus Gossi's version is slightly different. He claims that Felicia had planned throughout Melodifestivalen and throughout Masked Singer to reveal who she was, to take the mask off, and that way bash the Fröken Snusk brand and then build her own brand in her own name. What did occur was that Felicia was cut off from all the communication within the Fröken Snusk brand. She was cut off from her fans, but what she did have was a few friends that she had made through her new contacts within the music industry. She had a manager who had previously worked with Rasmus Gossi, but that she had grown confident of. She had a PR that she worked with during Melfest. She got in contact with them seeking help. What could she do? Because as far as we understand, the contracts with Gossi Records and Rasmus Gossi was so harshly written that she feared that whatever she did, she could get sued. Sweden doesn't really have a litigation system where you can sue for millions of Swedish kroner and win that. But even getting sued, you need to pay legal costs, you need to have a lawyer, and it can drag out for years and years, and it can still be costly for you. And especially being a 20-something young girl with no previous knowledge of these things, she needed help. They managed to convince Felicia to start releasing just videos of herself singing on TikTok under a completely different name, not mentioning Fröken Snusk in any way. Eventually, Rasmus Gossi confirmed that that was the old Fröken Snusk and that there now is a new Fröken Snusk. She could also, sometime during the summer of 2025, sign with a new record label. Doing the first interviews, though, after signing with the new record label, for those first interviews, she felt the need to bring with her manager, a PR, and a lawyer to sit in on those interviews because she was so afraid of saying something that could be considered a breach of contract so that she would get sued by Rasmus Gossi, Gossi Records, and for revealing things that she couldn't do according to the contract. Now, as we see her in Melfest, she has been more and more relaxed. My feeling is that she feels more and more secure in herself, going from the person hidden under a ski mask, forced to hide herself, to becoming who she really is. So he keeps on bashing her in interviews and social media, claiming that she used Fröken Snusk to build her own career and has now tried to bash the Fröken Snusk brand just to come out on top of that. And that is what we see going on now and leading up to the Melfest final.
I came into this knowing there was a potential story here and knowing that the Felicia redemption arc was what I wanted to focus on. But to be honest, even I didn't know the full extent until after I had spoken to Tobbe and the centrality of Melodifestivalen in the happy ending that we are now having. Let's not forget, Felicia came into the music industry through Rasmus Gossi, who exploited her talent at a young age when she was just a teenager and tied her into contracts that denied her her face and her name, as well as fair recompense for the absolute hit machine that she became as Fröken Snusk. He exploited her youth and her inexperience to do that. The ski mask that is associated with Fröken Snusk was Felicia's idea. It was Rasmus Gossi that turned that face mask into a cage. That ultimately drove her to depression and it landed her in hospital. Everything about the Fröken Snusk arrangement was designed to give Rasmus Gossi power and prevent Felicia from building a career without him. It was the people that Felicia met through her participation at Melodifestivalen that allowed her to finally understand the abusive and coercive world that she had been trapped in and gave her the tools to escape from it. She's been surrounded by a whole lot of people who did not have her best interests at heart, and it's only now that we're finally seeing what she can do when she does have the right people around her. To emerge from the kind of abusive and coercive environment that she was in and to return to this stage this fast at all, let alone with a song that could potentially win this entire show, is a triumph in and of itself. The fairy tale, to an extent, has already been written, with this show at its very heart. If this can take the next step and make it to Eurovision, then that would just go to another level. Of course, there's only one way to find that out, and that's by watching the show later tonight. And as has become standard here, it's time for a montage to bridge the gap from this piece to camera to what is going to happen in the results. See you there.
Äntligen här i Stockholm.
So now it is already time for the juries. I'm going to invite James to join me in this experience.
Hello.
I have to take my Finnish flag.
For Jaakko. All right, so nervous.
If Felicia gets 70 plus in the juries, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah,
That's good. Anything lower and maybe it's like, ugh.
it's a bit weird doing one of these in a press room instead of in the room.
Yeah, that's true. I've never done
But
similar.
it's somewhat calmer, but also scary in some ways. Here we go. First juror is going to be the Armenians, then Italy, Croatia, France, Czechs, Australians. Felicia only 7.
7.
Only 7.
Okay,
And
so Gresham
with
the first 12.
Gresham with the first 12. Let's see what happens. Italy now. Medina, nothing at all
Nothing
for Felicia.
at all. Okay.
Well, you know.
We've got an interesting night ahead.
We give 12 points to Felicia.
Felicia, 12 points. Okay, we're off to the races now, hopefully. 2 more jurors to go. Greece now. We have Greece and Finland left. Nothing yet from 1 to 7 for the top 3. So Gresham, Felicia, Medina. Gresham with 8. 10 points for Felicia. That'll take it to 59. But this could see now just a small lead emerging for Medina. Here we go. Jaakko has the Linda and Peter prop behind.
If Felicia's in top 3 now, she's won the jury.
Yes, if Felicia gets 8, 10 or 12 now, because only 3 for Medina and 7 for Gresham. Come on, Finland.
Points from the Finnish jury go to, well, let's just say a song that is stuck in our heads, our hearts, and indeed.
Yes. Oh, that was... Felicia wins.
So,
Thank you, Finland. Even in Sweden, Finland truly never lets us down. Yeah.
71 for
Okay.
Felicia. That's about where I thought it would be, actually.
And the real headline is here, other than Viva l'Amour and Gresham, everyone else is so far away that unless there's a mega landslide, it looks like these are the 3 now. One of those 3 is winning tonight. Do you want to click your fingers?
Oh, do I get to click it?
Yeah,
That's
do-
exciting. All right, here we go.
Allt är upp och ner. Du är allt jag ser.
Time. We now have a result. They're about to reveal the results to the public. Oh, God. Sweden, please. She's
Well,
shaking her ass.
it's rare. I don't think we've seen that much before a televote.
Okay,
Right.
here we go. Results are now. Let's see what happens. Starting with Saga Ludvigsen, who's currently last place. 13 points. She goes up to second last.
That will likely be last.
Unless Sanna Nielsen gets an egg. This
Right,
is the big
Delulu.
one.
This is the
Delulu,
first
Lilla
big score in
Alpine.
theory.
Could be in the 70s or 80s.
39 poäng.
Oh my god.
Wow,
Only 39.
Iconic med
I guess they
Okay.
went really big with this lower generation.
And then didn't go up, yeah.
in the high age group. 36 for 18s.
A lot of
Again,
points still on the board.
half of me, Viva l'Amour, my system, Felicia, Medina,
So
Gresham.
Gressler now.
And we haven't had any big scores. No, it's 70.
Okay, wait.
70. 70 for Gresham.
Whoa.
That's not going to be enough to win.
64
not gonna be enough.
Felicia would need for that.
Yeah, I really thought Felicia would have this. And now I feel so full of doubt. Here comes Medina's point.
66 poäng.
It's 66 for Medina.
Not enough.
It's not enough to go ahead of Gresham. The question now is there enough left for Felicia? She
this
needs
has been a-
64. 90!
90. It's over.
Oh, she's done it. And she's done it by a mile. She has done it. Less than 2 years ago, a producer by the name of Rasmus Gozzi tried to kill this woman's career. He tried to leave her for dead. He took her name, he took her identity, he locked her into contracts that she had to pay when she was sick. And now tonight, she has risen to the very top. She has won this show. She is going to Eurovision under her own name. Let this be a lesson to every Rasmus Gozzi out there who has dampened the flame and the shine of every woman like Felicia out there. That sometimes, I'm actually really emotional. Sometimes the good thing happens. Sometimes good people win. This show gave Felicia the people around her that she needed to escape a coercive, awful environment where her entire career was dependent on one horrible, abusive man. now she is free of that on her own name. And she's going to Eurovision, and I'm gonna have to finish this reaction tomorrow because I'm going to cry. Okay, I've calmed down slightly now, and I've found a slightly better location to finish this video. Not only not in the press room, not only with the stage behind me, but with our winner giving interviews and enjoying her moment just a few feet away. This whole video has been about her journey, about her story, about how she escaped from a horrible situation, from being exploited as a teenager, forced into contracts that took away her identity, that didn't allow her to fully profit from the music that she was making too. That she has then had to deal with somebody who is litigious, who has been going on every podcast he can find to trash her, to try and denigrate her reputation. To the people who tried to see her fall, and to the people who tried to destroy her career, I would suggest that you have failed. Now Felicia will go to Eurovision. Can it win? I'm not sure. This genre maybe has its limitations in terms of finishing right at the top of the scoreboard, but that almost doesn't matter. Sweden overwhelmingly chose Felicia tonight. She scored 90 out of a possible 96 from the televote. They chose her as their champion. They identified with her story, and evidently they loved the song. I really cannot explain to you how much chaos there is going on around me now. Such is the way with Melfest. But in some ways, it's perfect that we get to finish on this. I really wanted to talk more about the scale of this event in this video, but the Felicia storyline sort of took me away so much. I simply didn't have the time or the headspace to talk about anything else. But this is truly it. Hundreds and hundreds of media outlets, not just from Sweden, from all over Europe, not just fan media, but I've seen, for example, Latvian national television in this scrum as well. And the scale of this arena, as hopefully you can see behind me, is truly extraordinary. And I'll put a picture on the screen right now. There is genuinely no other show like Melfest in Europe. And it doesn't really matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you think of the song quality as a whole, whether you think this year was strong or weak. Personally, I think it was a year that had some real quality live performances, not many that I would necessarily add to my playlist, but that I enjoyed when I saw them on the stage. What you can hopefully see from the chaos around me right now is that this is a Swedish cultural institution, and it has given this woman the career that she deserves in a way that almost nowhere else in Europe could deliver. So, for now, thank you as always for watching this video. Thank you for supporting this channel all through national final season. There's plenty more coming very soon. And to conclude, I think we should just appreciate one more time our winner, who is fully deserved tonight and who will rightfully enjoy this moment for the next few months.
Grattis till dig!